Hello and welcome to Cinema of Blood. My name is John, and today I've got 5 horror movies from the year 1983. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get underway, shall we? Alright, so the first one we are going to talk about is Christine. Now, this is directed by John Carpenter. The screenplay is by Bill Phillips, and it is based on the novel by Stephen King. Okay, so now there's only one major difference. If you notice, anytime somebody talks about the movie Christine as opposed to the book Christine, it is referred to as John Carpenter's Christine, all right? The reason being is because Carpenter bought the rights to the book, or the rights to be able to film the movie based off of the book, before King even finished with the book. All right, so for all intents and purposes, this is John Carpenter's baby. Okay, this is not Stephen King's Christine, it is John Carpenter's, but it does follow along the same premise. You got this nerdy, bullied kid named Arnie. He's got this best friend named Dennis. Dennis is the jock, he's the high school jock and all that. All right. One day, Arnie sees this old, ugly, beat-up piece of crap 1958 Plymouth Fury. He falls in love with this car. He has to have this car, and he gets this car. And then next thing you know, this car starts to change him. You know, he goes from being this nerdy kid to this, you know, dressed real nice, cool kid, gets the girl. She's gorgeous. And the car is like going on rampages by itself. Okay? I mean, it is killing people by itself. Now, now this is one thing about the movie and the book. When I first heard they were making a movie out of Christine, the first thing I thought of was, how are they going to do the kills? Because the kills in the book are pretty nasty. In the book, when Moochie Welch, the first one to get killed, when he is killed, this car runs over him back and forth until he is pretty much nothing but a puddle on the ground, you know. And they do it a whole lot differently in the movie. In the movie, he gets trapped in this cul-de-sac, thinking the car's not going to get through there, and it does anyway, and it smushes him, it cuts him in half. But yeah, they totally did the kills completely different in the movie as opposed to the book. I still enjoyed the movie, but I would love to see somebody make a Christine and be just completely faithful, or as faithful as they can to the book. All right, so that's Christine. Okay, there you go. That's the first one, Christine. All right, so the next one is one that I just recently saw. I probably saw it about 3-4 months ago. And I got it as part of a folk horror anthology set called Woodlands Dark Days. No, All the Haunts Be Ours, I believe is the name of the set. I've got it in the other room. And I think this is the first time this has been released in a long time. Anyway, the movie I'm talking about is Eyes of Fire. All right. This is written and directed by Avery Crounce. Now, I remember Eyes of Fire when I used to go to the video store. I remember the cover of Eyes of Fire, but I don't think I ever checked it out from the video store back when it first came out in 1983. Anyway, this movie stars Dennis Lipscomb, Guy Boyd, Rebecca Stanley, and Rob Paulsen. Now, the thing about Rob Paulsen is this was his only live-action film. If you ever watch Pinky and the Brain, he was the voice of Pinky, and he was also the voice of Yakko in Animaniacs. He went on to do a voice acting career instead of a one where he shows his face. This was his final one. Anyway, this is about a preacher who is accused of adultery. So he and his followers, which I find to be really strange, it's like, okay, he was the one accused of adultery. Why are you kicking the followers out? They can just get a new preacher. But they're all kicked out of the community. You know, this takes place in the old days, the Puritan days, the Quaker days, you know, where they wore the black, funny-looking black hats and, you know, ate lots of oatmeal and stuff like that. And they get stranded in this forest. And the forest is haunted by the spirits of the Native Americans that have died there. And there's some really creepy imagery. There's like this one, it's like this little girl and her face is all burnt. And she's got these glowing red eyes and she's got these like teeth, like cat's teeth. She's like that. And there's like this tree that this guy, I think's a witch that she appears out of, and there's faces in the tree. And that's not all the weird stuff. There's a character in this, it's a woman, and she's got red hair, and she's a pretty woman, you know, but I think any opportunity she has to take her clothes off, she's out taking her clothes off, and she never talks. So there's that kind of weirdness right there too, but like I said, I saw this movie. This is the first time I saw it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, is it a perfect movie? Absolutely not. I mean, there is some things in this that leave a lot to be desired, but it was still just a fun, enjoyable folk horror movie. So yes, that is Eyes of Fire. Okay? All right. Now let's move on. We got a vampire movie here. This is The Hunger, and this is directed by Tony Scott. This was actually Tony Scott's directorial debut, which really surprised me when I heard that, because I'm always used to Tony Scott doing more action-oriented films like True Romance, Man on Fire, Runaway Train, movies like that. You know, you just don't expect Tony Scott to do a vampire movie, all right? The screenplay for it is by James Costigan and Michael Thomas, and it is based on the novel by Whitley Strieber. So, what is The Hunger about? It stars Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, and Susan Sarandon. So, Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie are a couple. They are Egyptian vampires, all right? Only thing about it is after a while, Catherine Deneuve's character grows tired of the men that she has made into vampires, and that is the case with David Bowie. So now that she's tired of him, he starts to age. I mean age rapidly, all right? So he seeks the help of Susan Sarandon because she's like some kind of scientist, and you know, it's been a while since I've seen it. I believe she studies either something to do with blood or something to do with aging. So he seeks out her help. But then Susan Sarandon's character meets Catherine Deneuve's character, Miriam Blaylock. And so she falls under Miriam's spell, and she pretty much becomes Miriam's new lover, and there's lots of lesbian vampire sexual scenes in this movie. It's a rather erotic movie, and great soundtrack. All right. Now, one thing I was reading about was David Bowie, when he had to get the kind of rough-sounding voice for whenever he was aging. What he would do, he said, he went out to the George Washington Bridge in the middle of the night and stood on the bridge and sang punk rock songs at the top of his lungs. You know, so it would help him get that rough voice. I thought that was really cool to hear about that, all right? Anyway, so that is The Hunger, okay? Now moving on. Now one thing I noticed when I was looking through the list of movies for 1983, and you'd probably say the same thing for 1982, and probably the 1984 and beyond for a while, there were a lot of slasher movies. So I'm like, all right, I got to include a slasher movie in this. I'm like, which one can I include? I decided on Sleepaway Camp, because Sleepaway Camp has got to be one of the weirdest slasher movies ever made. All right, and I'm going to try, if you have not seen this movie, I'm going to try my best to give you the plot of this movie without giving away too much about this movie. All right, so you got these this dad, and it says his partner. Now, when it says partner, I'm not sure if they mean partner as in best friend or partner as in partner, all right? And they are out with the one guy's kids, Angela and Peter, and they're out boating, and there's a boating accident, and the only one left alive is Angela, all right? So now Angela is, I believe she's like, when the main part of the movie takes place, she's like 14. She gets sent to this camp, the sleepaway camp, all right? And then all of a sudden, these mysterious deaths start to happen. So they suspect that there is a killer in the camp. Okay, and I'm trying not to go too far with this. Like I said, let's just put it this way. The ending to Sleepaway Camp is one of those endings that back then, I don't know if it'll shock anybody nowadays, but back then, I guarantee you there were a lot of jaws hitting the floor at the very end of Sleepaway Camp. And it's not only a jaw hitting the floor ending, it's a pretty creepy ending as well, because it just comes out of absolute nowhere. You're like, what the? Yeah, okay. So yeah, that is Sleepaway Camp. Now here's an interesting thing. Sleepaway Camp 2. Now Sleepaway Camp 1, I'm sorry, I did not give the stars of it, are Felissa Rose. She played Angela. And of course she wanted to have her a really, really nice scream queen career as a scream queen. All right, Jonathan Tiersten and Karen Fields. Okay, so now the thing about it is Sleepaway Camp 2. Here's the thing about that. Okay, so Felissa Rose did not reprise her role as Angela in Sleepaway Camp 2. Angela in Sleepaway Camp 2 was played by none other than Pamela Springsteen. Yes, that's Springsteen. She is the sister, the younger sister of Bruce Springsteen. All right, I think this was her only role that she ever did. From what I understand now, I believe it's either her or Virginia, his other sister, or Jenny. One of the two of them is a photographer, and I think it's Pamela. But yeah, I think this was the only movie that Pamela was ever in, and she played Angela in Sleepaway Camp 2. All right, so there you go. All right, last but not least, we have got Jaws 3D. And the reason I picked Jaws 3D is normally I try not to pick too many sequels. I try not to pick too many remakes. Jaws 3D to me is one of those great bad movies. All right. You know how when they release a third film in a series, it's usually the weaker film out of the entire franchise. Now this is an exception because I'm telling you right now, Jaws the Revenge is an even worse movie than Jaws 3D. Jaws 3D was at least a hell of a lot of fun. Jaws the Revenge took itself way too damn seriously, but this was fun. Okay, the screenplay is directed by Joe Alves, and that's his only movie he ever directed. He was the production designer on the first two Jaws movies, and it was because of him that the movie, The Look of the Shark, was the way it was. I mean, because they were having so much trouble with this thing, but he is one of the ones that was instrumental in getting, putting a good look on the shark. All right, I mean, because you got to admit there are some parts in Jaws where you're like, I know that's a fake shark, okay, but it still scares the shit out of you. All right. The screenplay is by Richard Matheson, but I know that he complained because he said that they had a lot of script doctors that just couldn't understand the whole premise that he had behind this shark coming in and getting trapped inland, so to speak. All right, and then also by Carl Gottlieb. Okay, starred Dennis Quaid, Bess Armstrong, Simon McCorkindale, and Leah Thompson. And this was Leah Thompson's very first movie, and she played a character named Kelly, which I think is funny because it seems like every single movie where you have an animal gone berserk thing, and you have either your marine biologist or somebody associated with marine biologist, or you have your park ranger or somebody associated with park rangers, there's always somebody with the name Kelly, either a first name or a last name. You got Ranger Kelly, you got Kelly this, Kelly that. It just seems like there's always got to be a Kelly in these movies in some way. Another thing about this movie is that Dennis Quaid was aggressively high on cocaine and was high pretty much every scene that he filmed. All right? So yeah, there's that little bit. So what is Jaws 3 about? Jaws 3 takes place at SeaWorld, okay? So this one shark comes in and gets trapped in the irrigation system, or whatever you want to call it, at SeaWorld, all right? Well, it turns out that this is the baby. The baby is 10 feet, okay? Then Mama shows up. Mama is 35 feet long, and she is also within the park's irrigation system, and just completely wreaks havoc on the park, and it's up to Dennis Quaid and Bess Armstrong to save the day. Now, I'll tell you this, I'll say this, there's a scene in Jaws 3 where these two divers, they're thieves, and they're trying to steal coral. And one of them's on the boat, up on the boat. I believe he stays on the boat, but I believe he does eventually get killed. But the other one goes down below, and he's got his flashlight. Well, you see from up above, and you see the shark attack, and it's like, there's the flashlight, boom, no flashlight, so you know what's happened to him. And they're over by some reeds. Now, I went to SeaWorld, and I was doing the whole SeaWorld tour, and this is in Florida. And I'm pretty sure I saw the area where this particular scene was filmed. I am pretty much, I'm going to say I'm about 99% sure that that area that I saw was where they filmed the scene. Now, I do know that whenever they did film the movie, that even though they did film at SeaWorld, there were some things in it that weren't actually at SeaWorld, which meant they built sets. But I guarantee you that this particular scene, I did see that, and it was the actual real place, all right? So, yes, that is Jaws 3, and that is going to do it for 50 years of horror movies, 1983, all right? Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, take care and stay scared. Bye-bye.